Hi, I'm Carol Herder, president of Cavallo, and I'm very happy to be here with my good friend Lynn Seeley, and we're in Northern California. And Lynn has been a farrier, traditional farrier, for over 50 years, but for the last 20 years he's been trimming only. He no longer nails metal shoes on horses' feet, and he's the go-to guy in these parts. For if you have any trouble with your horse's feet, Lynn is going to fix it up. Lynn and I together wrote the Cavallo Barefoot Trim, and today Lynn's going to actually show us how to execute that trim. So we're going to do a live video for you of how to actually trim a horse's foot. And Lynn has upwards of 250 clients, so he's busy knowing how to trim, learning every day, I'm sure.
Always.
Yeah. So today he's going to teach us.
When we first get started with a horse, you want to introduce yourself to the horse so he knows what's going on. This is very important because the horse has to cooperate through this, and we don't want to terrify him. You'll notice he's sniffing, and when he's done, he'll turn his head away. You just stand there quietly and don't move, don't try and pet him or anything during that time, and they're identifying scent. So that's good for him, and that's all part of the trim. It's important. So now he'll give me his foot, and he'll just work right along with me. If I don't take that introduction time, this won't go as smooth. Okay, the first thing we want to do is clean the foot completely. So I use the back of my knife usually. If for some reason the back of your knife isn't working for you, I always, on a lot of dirt, I carry a hoof pick, and go ahead and clean it out. Now you want to be careful when you're cleaning down in this part of the foot, right alongside of the frog. There's pretty much in the center of the frog, the deepest part of the commissure. When you're cleaning that, you want to get it clean, but don't gouge in there, because this is tender tissue for about this 3/4 of an inch. So clean the foot thoroughly, but don't over clean in that little section. Okay, now the first thing we're going to do is take the debris out of the foot. Any of this old loose stuff that needs to come out, just take it off. It's loose and falling off. See, this part that's sticking over here, that's frog, but it shouldn't be there. It's a nice big wide frog is good, but this part that's hanging over like this forms, I call it a roof. It forms a cover so that it keeps dirt and mud and bacteria under there. You want the dirt to be able to go in and come out. So we imagine that with our knife blade. Go in, I'm following the direction of the frog, and you can see that my knife is straight up and down, and that's how we're going to cut that off. Which, by the way, you notice that I'm wearing gloves. Always wear gloves. Now, from about halfway down the frog, bear in mind, all I'm doing right now is I'm still just taking excess material off so I can see what's in the foot. But if I imagine about halfway down the frog and then split that in half again, just take this part and taper it down so that you're just cutting the tip off. Don't cut a lot, just a little. See, it makes a nice smooth cut. Now you'll see that I can't really cut this part of the frog on this side with this knife like I did over there, so I switch. These knives, the blades are curved differently. So now I can use this knife and come in, draw the same line with my knife blade straight up and down, and just take off this overhang of frog. And then I can do the other side of the frog down here with the same blade. Now see, I'm debreeding it, taking away this loose stuff. Now see, this is the wrong blade to do that with, so switch it out again. Come over here and just cut it off nice and smooth. It's that simple. Okay, now we've got a lot of excess stuff off of the frog. the next thing we're going to do is sort of rough in the bars. Now, if you remember, the bars have to go in a line that goes from where the horn is, the outside wall, in a straight line down to about the midpoint of the frog. So we're doing that. Now you see where I'm getting the power to do this is out of my left hand, not the hand with a knife in it. The hand with the knife in it is directing the cut, where the blade sits, the attitude, so whether it's going in or out, but the power to make the cut is coming from my left hand. See, and that way I have control all the time. Come over here, I've just rolled my hand around, put my power hand down here, and I just make the same basic cut. And all I'm doing is getting rid of the excess kind of stuff again now. Okay, now it's starting to look like it's cleaning up a little bit. Okay, I'll draw these lines just to help locate where I want to make the cut. The bar should be right about here. Like that. The inside of the foot, or you might say the outer edge of the inner good foot, is here. Then if I take the distance of the thickness of the wall and I draw that line, that approximate same distance right here from the first line I made, this has given me an idea of where I'm going to end up trimming the foot. And I'll do that with nippers. I'll start off doing this as a reference point. I'm going to, this is always an easy line to draw. It's right in the center of the foot. So just put your ruler right down the center and just draw that line. It doesn't take a lot of thought and it doesn't move. The frog is the aiming point here. You may have one part of the foot is bigger than the other. It may be shifted one way or the other, but this doesn't change. So that's a point you want to use for reference. The other point is where the wall bar triangle comes up and makes this point. Well, that point should draw a line parallel to that on the foot, like this. It's parallel to the center line, right over that point. See, and that just gives you some things to look at. And then the other thing you want is about halfway down the frog, just so that you know where it is. Just draw a rough line there. And at the tip of the frog, the apex, you want to do that. And that's all you really have to do in the form of mapping, so to speak, so that you can have some reference points in your mind. And these are going to change. When I trim it, you'll see that this changes, and I may have to remark it. And you can also mark across the back or the buttress of the foot, and that'll give you your rear line. Okay. Now I'm going to take a break for a second. Do this, and now we'll start doing it. So I want to make sure I'm somewhat following the guidelines. Okay. Now.
Hold on. So where are you headed now?
Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to be trimming the horn and setting the heel height all at the same time. The heel height should be anywhere approximately, give or take a little bit, approximately about an inch and a quarter as a vertical distance off the ground. So it would normally look like this. If you were measuring it, you would draw a line back at the heel, which I'll show you how to do here. right from the hairline. Actually, it's the top of the horn line, not the hair. The hair, depending on your horse, could be clear down here. Don't do that. Come up and you feel the hoof capsule, and you'll feel where it gets soft coming up to the top. That's the top of the capsule. Draw a little line there. You can do it on both sides. And then you measure, like his foot was on the ground, you put your line right there at the line on the foot, hold your ruler perpendicular to the bottom of the sole, sight down it, which is easy to do, and that puts his heel height right about here. Now you should check that before you hand me my rasp, please. An easy way to check it is to take your rasp and lay it across the heels and sort of look at it. And it should look like it's the same height on the inside and the outside. That would be the medial side or the lateral side. And you want to look at it, make sure it's the same. If it's raised up like that and you have one heel too long, you need to make note of that and see if you can straighten it up as much as possible. And that you're going to determine how much you can do by watching the horse move, see what the set of his foot is, and his sole. And this is a very important point. The sole, if you look at the angle of the sole, the way it's planing out, you can see that it comes around here, and if it just planed right on through, it would be right about there. Same thing over here. And it'd be right about there. So you got about the same height. The heel is about the same height on both sides. If I saw that one was really grossly higher and the sole is telling me it doesn't have to be that way, I would go ahead and straighten it up a little bit. But generally, you'll see that they're pretty close. And that's what you want to use as your aiming points when you're eyeballing the horse, is that these heights are the same. Okay, now we're going to start actually doing it. Now when I know I'm going to actually be lowering the heels a little bit. So it's easier on me if I lower the bar a little bit now, because then when I'm cutting it with my rasp or my nippers, I don't have to be trying to cut down the entire surface of the bar there at the same time. It just makes it for an easier job. Now here's an important thing to remember with the nippers. I'm going to use the inside nipper blade and put it approximately on this outer line. I usually leave it out a little bit so that you don't cut too short. I can always tune it up and fine tune at the end. But if I've cut too much foot off, I can't glue it back on. So the easy way to do that is you put your inside nipper blade about where you want it on that line, and then the angle that you have the nippers at is what's going to determine where that outer blade is. You can see that. So if this is starting the rounding also, because if I go clear over here, you can see I'm going to cut a lot of it off. I don't want that much. I want about this much. So instead of being right on the line, a little bit, you're cutting, your nippers are at about a 45 to a 60 degree angle, and you just keep resetting the inner nipper blade and just come right on around, and you let that inside blade just sort of float in the cut you already made. And now that I'm getting to the side, to the quarters of the foot, you see my handles aren't tipped out like that anymore. I'm starting to straighten them up. As I go past the quarters, now my nippers are pretty straight. Now as I come in towards the heels, I'm for sure either straight or my nippers will be slightly inboard, not out. If you put them out, you'll cut way too much off of the heel. So my inner blade on the nipper is set where I want it. My handles are kind of leaning in towards the center of the foot. And so you just take that right off and follow the cut clear to the end. Don't get to the end and sort of chicken out and go like this and cut it up and off, because then you just have a lot of work left to do. So now I go over here. I generally start at the toe, just because on most horses that gives you a better idea, because whether you know it or not, the two halves of a horse's foot, between this half and this half, are usually different. So excuse me. So that allows you to trim that half based on the foot itself. Then you come over here and trim this half based on the way the foot is built on this side. And you're not necessarily trimming one half to the other. So you're constantly adjusting. Inside blade now is just slightly above the black line. Nippers are going to start to stand straight up when I get to the quarters. Now they're going to be kind of tipped in just a little bit. If you go to make a cut and you go, oh, that's too much, the key is stop cutting. Take your nippers out and say, whoops, what, and think about it for a minute, and then go back and maybe cut a little bit less, and then keep right on going. Okay. All right, now the next step is we're going to rasp the foot. See, and always when you rasp, so you're going across it and the rasp is moving from the back to the front or the front to the back as well as to the side. Don't just go in one spot like this, and you won't get a flat foot. So you go like that, and the rasp is sort of leveling out the high spots and taking off the part that you want. Now you can see we're pretty much right down to where the line was that I drew. Now in this case I want to focus on the heel a little so I can turn my rasp around. You notice I'm holding the rasp now by the tip of the rasp, not the handle, and I'm cutting, drawing it to me. A rasp only cuts in one direction. It does not cut if I'm pushing on it here. I'd have to turn it this way. Now it will cut if I'm pushing on it. So it only cuts when I'm going in that one direction. Okay, so that pretty well has it roughed in. Now notice I have not cut a lot of sole out yet. And I'm not going to, because this horse doesn't need a lot of sole removed. Okay, now you can look at the foot. You see I can put my rasp across there. The heels look pretty much the same. At the present time, his frog is a little bit high, which see, this part should be exfoliating pretty quick. You can see where that's trying to come off. I'll determine in a minute whether I'm going to remove it or not. This particular part of the frog is a part that should come out. So you can do it with your rasp if you want, just be careful. You can take it out, or you can use your knife and just sort of clean it up. Whatever's comfortable for you. The thing is, don't go down here. It's not trying to rasp deep into the frog. It's trying to just get rid of this piece that becomes hard, and it'll actually cut into the frog if you do that. So this is just a cleanup now. We can see where it's going to be. I'm just using the rasp mainly to clean his feet a little bit. Now in the corner here, I'll use the same thing. I can use my rasp, but the rasp should be following these parallel lines, not angled in here and not angled out there, but just parallel to the lines, and I'm just removing some dead tissue is all I'm doing. Normally, you can do that with your knife or the rasp, whatever is comfortable. The point is you want to get rid of some of this tissue, because you want, when you're all done, you want the dirt to be able to go in here and out. So that's the goal. The goal is not to cut a lot of tissue off of the foot. The goal is to make the foot so that it enables it to be healthy and move healthy. And when he steps down onto the ground and the coffin bone gets compressed under his body weight and it's trying to find the ground, that's what the commissures are here for, and that's what this space is for, because as the coffin bone presses down, it has to have a place for all of this tissue to move. And if you don't have a few openings here, it's solid and it hurts them. So they need these areas for expansion joints, so to speak, and that's what we're enabling. So it's an expansion joint, it's concavity for flexing, and it's got to be open for the dirt to get out, because if the dirt stays in here and it becomes solid, then you don't have an expansion joint anymore. So that's the purpose of making this cut. Now you can also take this little piece out, which you should do. There. Now, I'll address the bars next. Okay, now, the bar. I'll show you with my pen first, and I do this quite often. And when you're first getting started, you should do it almost every time. You can see the weight-bearing portion of this, the part of the wall that's going to be contacting the ground. The way it is right now, with the bar set here, is it would go clear out here and clear to there, and it'd be this whole thing. Well, from this point down is bar, not wall, that's bar. The horse was never meant to carry all of his weight on his bar. So this amount of it would then become sore, and it would make him ouchy. A lot of times when horses are brought in and the people say, oh, my horse is he can't stand to put his feet down, within about 2 minutes I can have all that fixed, because all you have to do is relieve this so it is cut down like that, and you get rid of this little piece. See, here it is right here too. So here's the wall. If you just took this line and drew the wall around, it would go to there. So the bar should be relieved clear to that point. So here's how you do it. You just take your knife. It's a straight line, not a scoopy line. You're not scooping out the bar. It's a straight cut from here to there, from here to there. Don't remove too much bar. So I just put my knife pretty much where I want it, and just take the bar down in a straight line. See how I just cut it? It's almost right on the black line. It's a nice straight cut. Now the bar is below the wall height, clear to this point. Okay, now we're going to do this other side. So I can turn my knife over, come back here. Now you can just see how it starts to change its appearance. See, and it's clear back here to where the horn is. Now the bar is not carrying weight, primary weight. The horn is, not the bar. Okay. Now what I'm doing is what I call detailing the bar. If I left it like this And all I did was make that first cut that cuts the bar to its height. If I stopped there, what would happen is that the bar, as the horse is walking, the bar would be pushed into his foot by the way the dirt would push up on it. Well, I don't want that to happen because the bar is harder than the sole. And so if it pushes into the foot, you'll get that bent out bar that starts here. And because it's harder than the sole, it will atrophy the sole underneath it just from the pressure. So what we want is to detail this bar, and I'm just going to use the fine edge of my knife, and instead of leaving the bar flat, I'm going to put my knife up to where it's perpendicular to the inside surface of the bar. See, it's an angle like this. I don't know if you can see it or not, but if it's an angle like that, I'm going to put my knife perpendicular to it and only cutting the bar, not the sole. I'm going to go right down. I'm not changing the height at all. All I'm doing is changing the detail of the bar. So now it comes up and over, and you can actually see it. And then I'm just trimming out the sole a little bit so that it, stand up, so that it is just sort of fleshed out, that's all. And now, when the horse, by the way, you can see this small line, that's where the lamina of the bar is. Bar has its own lamina. And so we now have, the dirt will come up here and press in here. The bar, which is over here, is getting pushed down by the coffin bone from the inside, and it tends to stand the bar up, not lay it down into the foot. And that's what you want, because the bar is not only a support structure, but it's also like a skid brake, so that when the horse is going downhill or in the grass, that bar is scooting in the grass, catching it, and slowing him down. Now I'm going to do the other side, and I'm using the hook of my knife on the bar only. I'm not cutting the sole. See, I'm only cutting the bar. See where that hook, where that piece of material is coming off? And I'm not cutting the height. Okay. Now we're going around. Give him a little break here. Good boy. Good boy. Yeah. Oh. Okay. So I'm going to go around and clean this. Clean the sole. About that 3/8 of an inch around. I'm not cutting out into the sole itself and removing it because he doesn't need any. I'll go ahead and trim off some of the frog here. Cut off some of the frog here. This is just old frog, should exfoliate, that's why I'm doing that. Leaving the frog as straight up and down as I can. Okay, now I'll take the rasp, and I'm tipping the rasp up at about a 45-degree angle and starting to round off the horn. Okay, that starts it. Okay, now we got to go out front. Come here, little man. Okay, now we're going to pick his foot up, put it on the stand. Our rasp is perpendicular to the bottom, shaping it. Now I'm rounding it a little bit. Okay, shaping, perpendicular to the bottom, and I'm rounding, and I'm blending that little top edge in. Okay. Ask him for his foot back. Go back here. Now I'm going to round from this side to meet the other side. What I did when I had his foot forward. Now because we have a little bit of separation on the sides, this is just because his feet are drying out for summer. I'm going to tip my rasp up a little and relieve that a little bit so it'll help it grow together. Same thing over here, I'm tipping my rasp up just in the quarters, just where the separation is. Around it, and there you are. So I didn't cut anything out of the sole because there's no reason to take it off. That's just like tearing your callus off your hand if you do that. So there's no reason to take it here, he's wearing it off. But there was a reason to take it out of here to sort of identify the clean dirt line. You don't dig all the way to the clean dirt line, you just want to know where it is. Bars are okay. The cat ear, the sole that's in this area, it's called the wall bar triangle or cat ear, should be lower than a line that goes from the wall to the bar. But you don't do that with the tip of your knife, you do that with a flat curve. Just like that, that's all you need, just a paper thickness there, as long as it's low. And that's about it.